All right, it's the drive to work. Been trying to figure out why my camera wasn't working because it's plugged into the USB charger in this phone. It's trying to do it's prompting me for media transfer, and I don't have the screen on because I'm trying to do a good job of explaining that I'm not watching my camera as I'm driving here. On that note, there's no spot, there's no GPS in this car, so I have to use my phone, but there's no spot for it. So it's in the cup holder. The cup holder is here. So if you see me looking here, it's because I'm literally trying to use my GPS. That's all I got. I also realize it's going to be crappy because when I go to park at the office, I don't pull into spots ever in any vehicle. I always back in. But there's no backup camera in this thing. And the mirrors are absolute trash too. So I have to pull into a spot, and I'm not excited about that. But, man, this intersection is garbage right now. This person, oh no, they figured it out. It looked like they were trying to give me the right of way, but they just don't know how to pull up to the turn properly. So that's fun. Okay, so I'm probably going to break this into two parts, do the drive home with a separate flavor of this. Sorry, there's a police cruiser that's oh, he's going through the intersection. There's a lot going on right now. If you watched this morning's video, I don't know, some people are just, randomly jumping onto videos, that's fine. In this morning's video, I said I wanted to do a bit of a rant on the drive to work, which is right now. But I was thinking about this, I don't just want to rant and then it's a toxic thing. I want to get some points across that I think are valid. And then I want to talk about, in the drive home, unless something comes up that's more interesting, I want to talk about how debates and conflict and stuff like that, because this is sort of why this is coming up. Why people need to get better at this stuff in software engineering, because it's, and I'll explain this more in the drive home video, but just a little teaser is that sometimes when I'm watching how people discuss and debate things on social media, I get a feel for what it would be like to be trying to work on a software project with them when they disagree. And I get this feeling sometimes from certain individuals that I would absolutely hate working with this person because they are not good at debating and trying to resolve conflict. So I'll talk about that more on the drive home because I have some examples which will be based on what I want to talk about on the drive to work, which is right now. So what I want to talk about is software developer versus engineer versus professional engineer. So there is a post I make through BrandGhost, which is the platform I'm building, and BrandGhost has the ability to have recurring posts. So I have a lot of content and I will repost it. I can't remember off the top of my head the cadence for this one, how long it takes to repeat. It's months. And I'm always adding content so that if it's 3 months before you see a repeat post of just this topic stream of content, by the time that 3 months is come around, I'm still adding content. It might be 4 months, right? So point is, that's how BrandGhost works. And one of the posts that I make through it is my experience on why I chose to go to university to work towards becoming a software engineer. And the story is essentially that, so I grew up in Canada. Right now I'm not living in Canada, I'm in Seattle area, but I grew up in Canada, and when I was deciding, hey, I'm gonna go to school to become an engineer, I wanna go become a computer engineer, that was the program, and I was trying to figure out if I wanted to be an engineer for computer hardware or for software, right? I'm trying to figure that out. I'm gonna be an engineer. In Canada, and this is specifically in Ontario, if you want to be an engineer, if you want to say, I am an engineer, you need to go. And I'm driving, I don't have this stuff memorized. So if someone's watching this and you're like, oh, you're wrong, and you're getting mad, watch the next video after so we can chat more about this. But from what I recall, what's required in Ontario, Canada to be an engineer is you need to go to an accredited university. So number one, you must go to university, and not just any university that's offering an engineering program or a computer science program. You must go to an accredited one with an engineering program. Okay, so they have already standardized who is allowed to be able to instruct people that will be going to become engineers. Part two, and I could have this part wrong regarding the exact requirements in terms of the length, but you need to have 4 years of work experience under a professional engineer. So even if you go to an accredited school and graduate like I did, I don't have 4 years of work experience that are documented under a professional engineer. So, according to Ontario, I am not a professional engineer. I cannot call myself an engineer in Ontario, Canada. Okay, this is, again, if these have changed over time, then that's like, I don't know, and I don't have it memorized, but this is what it has been when I was going through this. So, I'm trying to state things that are not my opinion. Like, I'm not saying I want this. I'm telling you, this is why I made the decisions I made, right? So those are 2 requirements. The next part is that you also have to pass an ethics test. And the ethics test I've never taken, so that's another reason why I'm not a professional engineer. The ethics test is apparently pretty ridiculous. And I think it's kind of funny because when I was going through school, they had like ethics classes that we would take. We would do these like ethics things on our internships, and it's kind of funny because to me it seemed pretty obvious. Like I don't know, like it almost seemed like common sense, but even towards the end I started to realize like they're putting you in these situations that seem like they're they seem like they're in like a movie, right? Where you're like, okay, literally both options, people are gonna die. And they're like, which one's ethically the better choice? You're like, man, like, what the hell am I supposed to say here? I literally can't see into my blind spot, so merging onto the highway is already a pain in the butt. So like the ethics part is apparently really hard. I've never taken the test, but apparently it's pretty grueling. So I don't even know if there's more beyond that, but those are 3 things. And I graduated from school 12 years ago. And it's been 12 years and I've only done the school part. I have not got the documented work experience under a professional, and I've never taken the ethics test. I cannot legally call myself an engineer in Ontario, Canada. That's what my post was about. That's why I went into what I did, and that's why I took the path I did. Now, I am very vocal about the fact that I do not think that that necessarily makes someone better at being a software developer. Because the first wave of things that come in are, I didn't go to university, or so-and-so didn't go to university, and they make amazing software. And I'm going, yeah, like, I believe you. I've seen that. You know what else? Like, I'm not a professional engineer, and nearly every single person I've worked with is not a professional engineer. And we've made some pretty kick-ass software. Like, yeah, I'm not saying it's not possible. That's literally not what I'm debating. It's not the same thing. So I am not trying to tell people that you must have professional designation in order to write good software. Not my claim. Because Even for myself, I think I've written some pretty good stuff in my day. I've seen other people that have written some pretty good stuff in their day, and they're not professional engineers. So I would be very hypocritical if I said you must be a professional engineer to write good software. It's absolutely not required. Now, I think where this gets confusing, there's a couple of different levels here. One is that the regulations aren't the same everywhere. And to give you an example, someone was commenting and saying, actually, like in Alberta in Canada, they actually changed it so that that software engineers can use engineer in their title without the professional designation. So there's, even in Canada, an exception to it. Okay, so that's part of it. I should also mention there's a historical reason that someone else pointed out to me in Canada, which is why we have this. So before I continue on, let me kind of jump back to this. I don't wear it anymore because from bodybuilding, when I put weight on and lose weight, we have iron rings. It's a Canadian engineering thing, and they're not iron, they're just like stainless steel. But the idea behind the iron ring is that there was this bridge, and I can't remember the exact story, a bridge in Quebec that that was built and it collapsed and killed people, and I think they had problems with it like 2 more times, like redesigned, collapsed again. Like basically, it was a shit show. Like just like I don't again I don't know the details. I don't want to like be like it was this guy and he messed it all up, but like just like an engineering disaster. And I thought from like I even went to school and they gave us iron rings, well, stainless steel rings in like this ceremony. And I thought that the significance of that story was just for the ring, but it's not. It's actually, and someone pointed this out, so this is one of the great things about social media. Someone pointed this out and they said, hey, that bridge disaster in Quebec is actually what caused a lot of these standards to be created in Canada. So there were some significant events, and in Canada they said, look, we need to have a standardized system for engineers so that there is accountability. So I'm not a professional engineer and I don't want to get this wrong, but my understanding is that professional engineers can literally lose their designation and be held accountable when things go wrong. So if you were a civil engineer and you signed off on things as a professional engineer, and that resulted in someone being hurt, dying, multiple people being hurt and dying, like you could be held accountable for that because you are the engineer that approved it. Guess what? Other engineers do this. Civil engineers, mechanical engineers, other engineers do this. They are held accountable. Could you imagine in software if there was a bug and something bad happened, if someone came to you and then said like, you'll never be able to practice engineering again? Like, hey, you broke the build and as a result that delayed things that cost millions of dollars and like, guess you'll never develop software again in your life. No software engineer is going to sign up for that. So going back to why I think there's some weird stuff going on here is, number one, I think like employers set the titles. So an employer will say, hey, we're hiring software engineers, we'll hire you regardless of professional designation or not. And this is like, again, I think it's fine based on the work that we're doing as software developers. Like that's why I'm saying I don't care if you went to a boot camp, if you're self-taught, you went to university. It doesn't matter. Like you can write good software, but companies are labeling the position as software engineer. So because we have this in industry where companies are giving the title, that is now in a bit of conflation with these professional, like these organizations that are trying to have a standardized designation of engineer. So it's kind of weird. I think I mentioned the other part was jurisdictions, so different parts I mentioned the Alberta example is different from Ontario. Some people were saying like, hey, in the US, we can just call ourselves engineers. It's no worries. And then I was like, well, that seems kind of like bullshit to me, because if I did like a 2-second search on Google, like I can see that there's like professional designation that's very similar. Like you need an ethics test, you need blah, 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 this work experience. And they were saying, no, 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 here's the difference. We can call ourselves engineers. We can't call ourselves professional engineers. Interesting. Okay. So like, where else does this happen? Could you imagine being like going to your doctor and then finding out like, oh, oh, no, sorry, I'm a doctor. I'm not a professional doctor though. Right? It's very weird. And again, I'm going to keep repeating this because so many people were missing my point talking about this. In that example, someone could be a very good doctor and not be a professional. I don't know. That would make me feel very uneasy because it's my life. But the same thing with software development, right? Like you don't need to have the professional designation to make good software. Now, what I don't know, and I haven't seen stats on, is if you did have the professional designation, are there metrics that suggest that we would have better software? I don't know. I'm assuming probably not, and it would be hard to do. But like, again, we have so many examples of the opposite, of people that are self-taught, going to boot camps, whatever it happens to be, and they're building amazing software. So I don't even know, right? It seems kind of weird to even try and go prove that. Okay, then we get, in the comments, we get people saying things like, well, man, I had it in my head, sorry, and I'm forgetting it. This is the problem with ranting and then doing it live. I can't like edit it out because you're seeing me like getting all heated and then being like, I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. That's what happens when you get heated though, like your brain stops working. Okay, so, there were, I'm trying to think, there were people chiming in saying that it's actually the same in their country. So they were saying, hey, like that works the exact same way here. I think someone was saying in Nigeria, that's how it works. Someone was saying in Italy, it works the same way. Someone was trying to suggest that like, that engineering is not because there's a lot of comparisons that people are trying to do with like medical doctors, because it's a regulated profession. There's someone driving behind me without headlights. So it looks to me like when I look up, it looks like there's no one on the road behind me, but it's because there's a car that's black blocking everything. These guys are so stupid. It's raining out pretty heavy, and you got idiots like this driving on the highway with no lights. Like, I don't know how people make it this far. Anyway, oh no, he turned his lights on. He figured it out. He's probably like, why can't I see literally anything? It's because you're stupid and you don't have lights on. So in the example between engineers and medical doctors, both of these are regulated. Like professional engineers, it's regulated. There is a very high standard for ethics. I explained all the requirements, and there was someone that was trying to say like, oh, engineering isn't regulated at all. And it's like, no, you're missing it. You're missing the whole point. It is regulated. It's extremely heavily regulated, but no one's abiding by it. And it's because all of the companies are just saying we're hiring software engineers and not doing anything about it. The governing bodies aren't able to do it, right? Like a professional engineer it's absolutely a regulated designation. So I feel like some people were trying to make arguments like this, and it's like, I don't know what the point of the argument is supposed to be. I'm I can give you literally, and I was like giving screenshots of like Professional Engineering Society, and like here's literally pictures of all the requirements to illustrate why it's regulated and how it's regulated. And then they're saying, well, no, it's not a regulated thing. No, my entire sort of point that I'm trying to get across here is that it is 100% a regulated thing, and that I find it very interesting that as software developers, we're the only engineers that can go around and basically have no accountability truly as engineers. Like, I'm fine with it. I'm not a professional engineer. Like, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I just find it fascinating that we get to be this exception. It seems weird to me, and it seems wrong. Works in my favor, or else I wouldn't be working. And then I had people saying, no, it's only like, what was it? It was like, it's only a very small, like percentage or small, I don't know what the word is, scope of things where you can be, like where this is applicable. And I'm like, okay, like, I told you what the scope is. I told you the scope that's relevant to me. Literally in the original post was like, I'm from Ontario, Canada. There's your scope. If you want to say, yeah, it's only a small part, great. If it doesn't apply to you, like, move the hell on. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You're trying to make an argument out of something that's not applicable to you. Okay, I never said it was. I literally told you who it's applicable to. So, I don't know. I find it fascinating, right? So, again, all of this to say that my choices for, like, because people, like, the reason I wanted to write about this is people ask me and they say, like, do I need to go to college or university? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? The thing I'm going to rant about on the drive home is related to college and university, which, again, I don't think that you have to go do. I know plenty of people that did not go to school, like post-secondary education, for like at all, or for computer science or like software engineering type things. I know plenty of people, and they've been very successful. But it would be negligent of me to try and tell someone that like, oh, it's not necessary if they wanted to be a professional engineer. Like, it would be negligent if I said, hey, like, no, you're good being self-taught or going to boot camp. And then they're like, great, like, I can't wait to get my professional designation because, like, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted because that's what I wanted to be able to do in Ontario, Canada. It turns out in Ontario, Canada, you literally don't need it anyway as a software developer. And what happens in Ontario, Canada is that companies will have software engineer positions, and I might have this wrong now in terms of the terminology, but they're not, literally the professional engineers of Ontario would go around to companies that had software engineer positions, and they would say, if you're not hiring professional engineers, you need to change the job title. They're literally enforcing it. So you could say things like software engineering, that's what you're performing, like that's a verb. Or, man, I gotta move over and there's no room. These friggin' mirrors are terrible. Oh my God. Or they just have to call them software developers because, like, guess what? That's what they are. Like, by definition, they're not professional engineers, but like this is the industry standards that we're calling them engineers. Again, I'm going to say it. I'm not saying that like that's how it has to be, or that's like, I'm just saying that like by the definitions that are there, that's what it's supposed to be. So in Ontario, it is enforced. So yes, it would be negligent of me to tell someone, hey, you don't need that, if they wanted to follow a similar path to what I was hoping to follow. Now, at this point in my life, there's not a lot of push to become actually a licensed professional engineer. And the reason is because I have so many other things going on, even just my career alone, like my work at Microsoft. There's so much to focus on that there is no benefit. There is no direct benefit to me becoming a licensed professional engineer. It's just more work. It's just more work, it's more accountability, it's more liability. It costs every year to maintain your membership to the organization. It's just more work. So I'm not going to pursue it any further. However, like, to me, it's a side quest. If I didn't have a bunch of other stuff going on, right? Like if I won the lottery and I didn't have to work, like I would still work because I like to work, but if I didn't have to, and now like most of my problems go away because most problems are money problems that we stress about. Like, for example, like we live in a house, but it's not the house that I want to live in for forever. It's not a great neighborhood that I'm happy with. Like, it's a house. I can't complain, but in my life, I would like a nicer house in a nicer neighborhood. There's a limit because I've seen some really big, crazy houses. I don't need that. I don't want that. But I want the next step up. Like, I want that, and that hasn't changed for years. So I have that in mind. But like, that's a problem that could easily be solved with money. So if I don't have to be stressing about, money, income streams, I don't want to be in a position where I have to work the rest of my life. I want to be in a position that I can work on anything I want for the rest of my life. That's my goal. So if I'm in that position, would it be fun and fulfilling to go pursue being a licensed professional engineer? Hell yeah, I think that would be super cool. And why? No reason except for that's what I wanted to do when I was a kid. When I figured out I was going to university to do this, that was my goal. It would feel very fulfilling for me to be able to do that. It has nothing to do with the fact that I could go say, aha, yes, now I can go apply to these software engineering roles and truly call myself the engineer. All of you are phonies. No, like literally completely unrelated. So again, I wanted to bring awareness that depending on where you are and how you talk about software engineering, it can mean different things. So if you want to be able to truly call yourself a professional software engineer, I'm sorry, but boot camps and self-taught and any professional engineering designation I've seen are not sufficient. And like I said at the beginning of this video, there are university programs that seem like they're relevant, like a computer science program, and even if it's not accredited to become an engineer, then it's not applicable. But that's if you want the professional designation. The reality is, in practice, and this is sort of the meta point here to take away, is in practice, it literally doesn't matter because I've not seen, aside from those like the professional engineers of Ontario trying to get people to change the titles, I have never seen in my time as a software developer or software engineering manager, I have never seen a requirement for a professional engineer. Okay, so that says something. It's like the industry is not asking for it. And that's not to say that I'm sure there are positions where they are trying to do that. Like I'm just making up examples because again, I don't have proof. I could imagine that maybe in some banking roles, some healthcare roles, maybe for military or space related, that they might be saying, look, like we're only hiring people with professional designation. And it's because they want to assume, and I feel like rightfully so, but who knows? They want to assume that they're going to be getting individuals that are held to this bar that's standardized. Now, again, I don't have stats that say how effective that standardization is. I don't know, but that's the goal of it. I thought of one more thing that I wanted to say, because I got off the highway now, so I'm almost at work, but there were people making arguments. Man, social media is fun. There were people saying, look, like, this is just, how do they phrase it? Oh my God. You can tell I have a lot of fun reading comments. I get super stressed out about it when just because I'm like, I don't understand how people think. But there's some comments around, like, it's basically just organizations trying to exploit people by having these standards. They're trying to take advantage of people. They're trying to capitalize on them. They're trying to extort them, was some of the phrasing. And I'm like, look, man, like, if you think that having standards is extorting people, like, I had to tell someone in the comments on this post, I said, look, now that you've kind of offered that perspective, I said, respectfully, I can no longer engage in a debate with you on this. And I said, and I mean this, like, not in a rude way. I said in my comment, I said, literally, I'm not trying to be rude about this, but I said, you've shared with me your philosophy on the fact that you think that having standards and governing organizations like this in place is only there to exploit people and there's no advantage. I said, respectfully, like, I can't debate you on this, because I'm not going to, like, we're going to have a fundamental disagreement at that point. So there's no possible way in our conversation that I'm going to spend effort trying to move even beyond that. That's a roadblock for us to advance any discussion any further. And, like, respectfully, right? Like, you are absolutely allowed to have that belief. It's fundamentally not what I believe. So there's no way that I'm going to try and persuade you out of that. You know, if you're like, hey, the sky is purple, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, dude, it's literally not purple, it's blue or gray right now because it's Seattle. I'm not going to waste time trying to tell you otherwise. What was the other thing? Because it was basically along the same lines of that, but it's like extorting, and then the other thing was I already can't remember. Again, I got too heated and too excited about that. But anyway, it's interesting stuff, man. I can't tell how big this vehicle is. I'm in the lines. It's good enough. Cool. Thanks for hanging out for the rant. Drive home is going to be similar. It's going to be on some topics, but what I want to do on that one is not just talk about definitions of things. Again, if you're watching this and you're like, hey, like, that definition or whatever is incorrect, like, I'm driving. I don't have the internet in front of me, so I'm trying to do it from memory. But yeah, if you want to debate this stuff in the comments, go crazy. I've already been doing it for a couple days now. The drive home is going to be on a similar topic, but I want to frame it so that you can apply it in engineering discussions, because as I'm explaining how people are commenting on this topic, right? What's happening is that people are, and this is good, people will share their perspective, but what they're not doing at any point is being able to acknowledge someone else's perspective. And that means that you cannot move forward. And if you can't move forward, especially in the workplace, like, you'll never progress on anything. You're gonna find, like, it's impossible to get architecture done, designs done. You have to collaborate with another team. Good luck. Nothing moves. So I think the most important thing that'll be a takeaway in the video on the drive home is, like, how do we have conversations where we literally don't agree on the same things and we can still move forward? That's going to be a hard one to talk about, but I'm going to try my best. So I'll see you later.